distinguished members. Good evening and welcome to this interaction with the Honorable Minister. Agreed to meet members of the Centre. I now request Mr. Shyam Saran to make his welcome remarks and conduct the proceedings. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to all of you to this very special occasion for IIC. Honorable Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, our Director, Mr. Srivastava, our Life Trustees, and also members of the executive here today, and all very distinguished members of the India International Center. India International Center has had this tradition of, encouraging open debate, discussion, listening to different perspectives, and it is in that tradition that we extended an invitation to Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, to come and speak to us about what has been happening in the field of foreign policy over the last several years. Of course, he has straddled a very long period of foreign policy making and practice. He was my very, very, very distinguished colleague when I was Foreign Secretary. He has just come back. As you can see, we have timed this event very well because he has just returned from Washington, where Prime Minister Modi had one of the most successful visits, I think, that any Indian Prime Minister has had to the United States. And I say this having been through what I also consider to be a very successful visit that we had in 2005. But if I compare 2005 to 2023, you see how far our relationship with the United States has in fact traveled. Something that I would not have anticipated in 2005 or 2008 when we finally concluded the nuclear deal with the US. So there have been some very dramatic developments in our external relations. And Dr. Jaishankar has been really at the very center of many of these changes. He has had, I would say, a kind of a central view of the changes that have been taking place in India's external relations. Therefore, I thought that it would be a great occasion for us to hear from him, straight from the horse's mouth, as to what are the changes that have been taking place. What is the perspective we have also for the future? I mean, which is the direction in which we are going? There are many good things that have happened, but there are challenges which still remain. So the way we are going to do this is, I will request Dr. Jaishankar to speak, say, for about a half an hour or so. And then he has very kindly agreed that we could have an open kind of discussion where he will be very happy to answer questions that you may raise on what he has stated, and also other issues with regard to external policy that you would like to pose to him. So once again, Dr. Jaishankar, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and agreeing to come here for this town hall kind of event. And I will now request you to kindly take the floor. Your floor is yours.
Ambassador Shyam Saran, Mr. Srivastava, dear friends, first of all, let me say, as a member, it's always good to come back to IIC. I don't get to do that very often. So quite apart from the chance to talk to you, as I said, it's always good to be back. The Modi government completed 9 years in office at the end of May. And I was discussing with Ambassador Shyam Saran that, this is a time when actually we as ministers are going around the country familiarizing people with what have been the what has been the progress over the last 9 years. And in fact, my own particular responsibility is to do that in 4 constituencies of Delhi, which are done 3. From that talk, the idea came that maybe putting across in a place like IIC to its members what has been the foreign policy developments over the last 9 years seemed a very good idea. So thank you, sir, for inviting me, and thank you all for turning up and giving my remarks the attention. So what I thought was, in terms of achievements, I tried, since it was 9 years, to think of 9 big things which had happened. So let me start really by listing out and explaining really what I feel are the 9 big achievements of the last 9 years. The first achievement, I think, has been our ability to play effectively on the global stage, and on the global stage with the big powers. Now, at best of times, that's a challenging task, but do bear in mind that in these 9 years, we've had 2.5 years of COVID. We've had about 1.5 years of a conflict in Ukraine. We've had a whole host of economic challenges for a variety of reasons. So even otherwise, playing on the big stage, on the global stage, would have been quite a formidable challenge. I think to do it with all these factors in mind, I think was particularly complicated. And my sense is, and I advance our recent visit to Washington as a proof, my sense is that we have actually managed to do that quite well. We have managed to do that, one, of course, keeping in mind all these factors of turbulence that I spoke about, but also keeping in mind that it's today a very polarized world. So if one looks at not just the COVID and its impact and the conflict and its impact, but also great power competition and how that makes straddling the global stage so much more challenging than it would. At this moment, I would say really, and I'd be happy to respond to that in greater detail, I think you can see that our relations with the United States is doing exceptionally well. We, I think, have really had the most productive prime ministerial visit in our history. If you look at the outcomes, one part of it is, yes, it's a state visit. Yes, it's the first time an Indian Prime Minister has addressed US Congress twice. But put all that aside, if one just looks at the solid outcomes for the visit and at the level of cooperation today in different domains, in business, in defense, in even in civil society, in terms of the flow of people, the areas like space, the scientific projects. I mean, there's really a long list here of practical achievements. And again, as someone who actually was with Ambassador Shamsaran in 2005, when I look back at these 18 years, I think we were earlier in a stage where we were trying really to address the obstacles of the relationship. Today, again, for a combination of reasons, we have moved into the positive domain. We are really looking at what is it that the two countries can do together in terms of not just bilaterally, but also in terms of how we can influence or shape the world together for our common purpose. If I were to today compare this with, when I say the big stage, with Europe, again, the attention which has been given to Europe over the last 9 years has really been remarkable. And it's been the big countries of Europe, it's been the smaller ones, it's the sometimes in groupings. But if you take any measurable metric of how you evaluate a relationship, again, I would suggest to you that the European relationship is doing well. There are, of course, a lot of possibilities there still to be realized, I think the big issue before us is concluding the free trade agreement. But all I can say is we are obviously much more hopeful than we have been in the past. Now, moving from Europe, the relationship with Russia. This relationship has been held steady, kept steady, despite all the turbulence in the world. So it is actually for us a very unique relationship, I think in some ways for the Russians also. And in this period, for all the pressures on us, I think we have made our own evaluation of the importance of this relationship. And I do want to say that, sometimes this relationship is dumbed down to things like, oh, we are dependent on them for arms. I think it's far more complex than that. There is a geopolitical logic for what we are doing, what we have been doing with Russia. And today, many things which we were working on even prior to 2022, which is how to expand our economic cooperation, those have borne fruition. So you actually have an upswing in the economic part of the relationship with Russia, even as you have very steady politics and continuing security cooperation. The difficult one on the big stage has obviously been China, and I would say it's a subject on which I have spoken publicly before. At the end of the day, for us, we recognize it's a neighbor, it's a big neighbor, it's today a very significant economy and significant power. But at the end of the day, any relationship has to be based on a high degree of mutuality. There has to be a respect for each other's interests, sensitivity for each other's interests, and there has to be an adherence to agreements which were reached between us. And it is that departure from what was agreed between us which is today at the heart of the difficult phase that we are passing through with China. And the bottom line there is, at the end of the day, the state of the border will determine the state of the relationship, and the state of the border today is still abnormal. Now, all of that I really put in terms of the first achievement, which is the global stage. But there are three factors at the global level which I think you should all keep in mind as well. One, that we are not just playing politics at the global level. We are also shaping the global economy, and we are actually building our own economy as a consequence of that. And that building of the Indian economy today has to factor in the opportunities that arise from competitive geopolitics. That if you look at global companies today, a lot of global companies are making choices which are through a geopolitical lens, and that today gives us possibilities which may not have existed earlier. The second is that particularly after COVID, there is a search in the world for more reliable supply chains, more resilient supply chains, more redundant supply chains. There is discomfort with relying on a single geography, what you call economic over-concentration. And here too, there are opportunities. And in the digital domain, there is a growing concern about transparency and trust. So where your data lives, where your data is harvested, where your data is processed, all of these matter. So if you look at the digital world, at the supply chain world, at the larger investment patterns which are today being influenced by geopolitics, that too is part of the big stage. And some of that, I think you could see as an influence over the outcomes which we got during the Prime Minister's visit. Now, and of course, from our side, we've made it significantly better for ourselves by improving the business climate in this country, by building the infrastructure, etc. But that's something I will talk about later. The second change is in regard to the neighborhood. And you saw that actually on the first day that Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. the idea of inviting all the leaders of our neighborhood to the oath taking itself was a divergence from our political traditions, certainly from the way the neighborhood saw itself and saw us, and how we saw the neighborhood. Now, over these 9 years, we have pursued relentlessly what we call the neighborhood first policy. The neighborhood first policy essentially means that we look at our neighbors, there are some exceptions, we look at our neighbors and we consciously take a generous, non-reciprocal, long-term view of building relations with them. And that means that if it is necessary for us to invest in greater connectivity, in greater flows between us, in making investments in their economy, we should be prepared to do that, because at our stage of growth, it is absolutely vital that we have a benign neighborhood. And a benign neighborhood doesn't happen by itself. It happens when the largest country in a neighborhood invests in the rest of the neighborhood, and that is essentially what we have tried to do. Now, if you look at the record of the last 9 years, even if I say so myself, I would say it is actually quite an impressive record in terms of project delivery in the neighborhood. So, if you take a country like Nepal, the power generation in Nepal, the power flows from Nepal. If you look at Bangladesh, in fact, even Nepal, the supply of fuel from India to them, the facilities today at the border checkpoints, the roads between us, the railway movement between us. So almost every aspect of connectivity and people-to-people movement and economic interaction between us, that has undergone a dramatic change. And it's very interesting that over this period, as frankly we had expected, today we are less and less seen as, in terms of I would say we are less and less pulled into the politics of our neighbors. That we are seen today as a permanent stabilizing factor in our neighborhood, who have the ability across political divides to get along with all parties and all governments. And that's exactly the kind of neighborhood we are trying to create. We've had 2 stress tests in the neighborhood, one on COVID, where we proactively moved to provide vaccines and even economic assistance. And secondly, in the case of Sri Lanka, they had a particularly serious financial crisis. And if you look at the speed and scale at which we gave financial support to Sri Lanka, we have never done anything like that ever in our history. So where the neighborhood is concerned, I would therefore assert to you with a fair degree of confidence that neighborhood first policy has worked. It has built the kind of relationships and goodwill that we would like in the neighborhood. In many ways, it has also been advantageous both for our neighbors and for us. Our mutual economic exchanges have actually gone up significantly in this period. So that's the kind of report card I would present to you in the neighborhood. Just as China was an exception on the big stage, I would say Pakistan obviously is the exception when it comes to the neighborhood. Again, it needs very little explanation. The fact is that we cannot allow terrorism to be normalized. We cannot allow that to become the basis for getting us into discussions with Pakistan. So I don't think, to me it's a fairly common sense proposition. In fact, if anything, I'm still a little perplexed by why we had not arrived at this position earlier. But we have arrived at it now. And the issue really is that until there is departure from, and I would say an abrogation of this policy of cross-border terrorism, clearly it is not possible to have the normal relationship with that particular neighbor. Now, going beyond the neighborhood, I would actually introduce to you the concept of what we call an extended neighborhood. And the extended neighborhood we see in all four directions. So I want you to really think of an India at a center. Then the first circle is the neighborhood. The second circle is the extended neighborhood. And there is a third circle, which is in a sense a world beyond, and out there are also the big powers. But the second circle in the four directions, one of course is Southeast Asia. What was the Look East policy became the Act East policy. It wasn't just a change of terminology. It also meant that we were prepared to invest more in connectivity. We were prepared to engage more deeply when it comes to security. So the ASEAN and beyond ASEAN, the Indo-Pacific, that is something which has really intensified. On the west is the Gulf. Now, the Gulf actually was, again, quite a discovery. I mean, in the sense that here is a region so proximate to us, and yet actually our political contacts with them have been incredibly conservative. And that is actually one of the biggest changes. I mean, if I were to look anywhere in the world and say, where has been the biggest change in the quality of our relationship in the last 9 years, I would say no question it is the Gulf. That you actually had countries like UAE, which I think had not seen a visit after Indira Gandhi. So the Gulf in the West, and here again, some of the building blocks existed. There was a diaspora there was an energy relationship, but there was the political closeness today, the strategic relationship that we have with them today, our ability to work with them in their own region and in the circle beyond, all of that has really been the advancement over the last decade. The third direction is southwards, which is what we call the Sagar policy, which is to take really an integrated view of the ocean space. That don't look at it just as Sri Lanka and Maldives or as countries, or really as some kind of larger multilateral space. So we have tried from, I would say, Madagascar till the Philippines to try to envisage them really as an integrated theater with an integrated policy, and to treat it as a neighborhood. Because in diplomacy, I mean, when we use the word extended neighborhood, there were two reasons for it. One, if you look at historical India, this was our neighborhood. Now, after 1947, we ceased to think of it as our neighborhood. So in one way, you could say we were reclaiming history. But there was the other part of it. In our own system, if you tell people it is the neighborhood, they attach a certain primacy to it. They give it an attention and resources, which they would not if they didn't have that same concept. And the fourth is, of course, northwards towards Central Asia. That is the most recent of the four that we are trying to deal with in an integrated fashion. And here too, when I talk of neighborhoods, our group interaction, our bilateral interaction, at different levels, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, the Trade Minister. So everybody is wired into their counterparts, and the entire system, in a sense, is working these neighborhoods. Now, I'll move to the space beyond, which is the fourth point I would make, which is, our activities and our footprint in Africa has expanded enormously in this period. Out of the 25 odd embassies we have opened in the last 9 years, 18 of them are in Africa. In fact, we are today one of the countries with the largest diplomatic footprint in Africa. And we have an enormous number of development projects, which I will also mention later on. But often when we thought of the world beyond our immediate periphery, we thought of Africa. Today, we are, as the fifth largest economy, as the most populous country, as a country with growing capabilities, we have started preparing really for what would await us a quarter century from now. So what we are doing is not meant for this term or for the next term or even for this decade. We are trying to think 25 years from now, what Prime Minister calls Amrit Kal, and ask ourselves, where are we likely to be in 2047 and what should we be doing now to prepare for it? And certainly in terms of foreign policy, what we need to prepare there is the basis for a global footprint. And a global footprint means being present in Latin America, being present in the Caribbean, being present in Central America, engaging with the Pacific Islands, doing something in Mongolia, going to Norway. So how do you actually, set up shop, make yourself visible, do things so that the rest of the world engages with you? That has been actually the sort of the bigger strategy towards the rest of the world. And that is why, if I were to now try to help you connect the dots, that is why you see Prime Minister going to Papua New Guinea for a Pacific Island Summit, or which is why one of our biggest development projects is actually a refinery in Mongolia, or why, as I said, we opened so many African embassies. Or if you look today at our trade with Latin America, it is close to $50 billion a year. And in this, it's not just the government. We are also, we see business moving. We see, different aspects, different, I even see academics, I see professionals. So there's a kind of a spreading out of India that we are encouraging, we are facilitating, we are guiding. And we hope that in due course becomes really the foundation for a global footprint. The fifth point I would make is security. Now, security, there's the obvious security. You would, when I say security over the last 9 years, you would say, okay, he will start with Uri and Balakot. Yes, I will. But I move on. Yes, again, our response to China on the northern borders has been one of our major, I would say, achievements in a way, because if you look at the scale of the response and the very daunting conditions in which it was undertaken, and I can see the chief of the era who did that sitting right in front of me. Definitely an Uri, a Balakot, the deployment on the northern borders, these have been big security achievements of the last 9 years. But the important thing is to have today a broad sense of security. Security is no longer military or counterterrorism or physically securing yourself. Security is also economic security, it's technological security, it is health security. So how do we actually take a larger sense of security and devise the policies accordingly and build it into foreign policy? So again, I go back to this Washington visit. If you look at many of the outcomes, when a Micron comes in or a Lam Research comes in or Applied Materials comes in, these people are coming here to really to add to our semiconductor production environment. Today, production of semiconductors is absolutely essential to our national security. So how do you broaden out the definition and then how do you implement it on the ground? That, I would say, has been our fifth achievement. The sixth one is in the sphere of global issues. And global issues in the sense there are international challenges and it could be climate. So you have something like Solar Alliance. It was the COVID. We did the vaccine Maitri where we gave vaccines to almost 100 countries. It could be disaster, since that is happening at greater frequency, where we have led an initiative called CDRI. It could be even food security. Today, we are seen in the world as the propagators of millet production. And millet production offers possibilities for food security, which are actually truly significant. And when disaster strikes, we are increasingly capable and deploying as a first responder. Now we did much of that initially in our immediate neighborhood, but if you saw the earthquake in Turkey, we were among the early countries to go in there. And what we did there was really, quite impressive. That too is part of what has changed in the last 9 years. The next point is, of course, our people abroad. And our people abroad, because we have more and more Indians abroad and people of Indian origin abroad. It could be, the diaspora in terms of people who have settled there. It could be students. There are today 1 million Indians who study abroad. It could be seafarers and crew members. You'd be amazed how many hundreds of thousands of them today work abroad. So how do you secure Indians abroad? This is today, I would say, a very important objective of Indian foreign policy, much more than it has been, partly because there are many more Indians abroad, but partly I think also because you have a government and a prime minister for whom these people are very high in his consciousness. So, when you think back of a Madison Square Garden event, or if you look at any other recent visit, when Prime Minister goes out there to communicate with the Indian community and people of Indian origin, this is not just a feel-good exercise. There is an underlying message. The underlying message is that we are there for you, and we are there for you in very, very practical ways. And in the last 9 years, we've actually had to demonstrate that repeatedly. We demonstrated it recently in Sudan, in Operation Kaveri, or in Ukraine, in Operation Ganga. In fact, if you look at the last 9 years, almost every year, we've had one or the other occasion to do some significant operation abroad. But we are also trying to create a systemic basis for it, which is have the financial resources for it, have a standing force which is able to move quickly, have SOPs within the civil military system. I mean, when Kaveri, for example, happened, I was actually in Africa at that time. Within the first 24 hours, the first ships moved, the first aircraft moved, the first set of foreign service officers moved. So everybody actually today is geared today to respond to contingencies outside. Associated with it, of course, when we think of people going abroad, is something which also affects people who stay at home but who do visit abroad, and that is the passports. So again, if you look at, in terms of practical achievements, 9 years ago, we had less than 100 places where people could go to apply for passports. Today we have more than 500. If you, again, which I don't wish happen to anybody, were to lose your passport or to misplace it. Today somebody would go to an embassy who will check the database and replace your passport. So if you look in terms of the rate at which our passport, in fact in these 9 years, our passport issuers have almost doubled. So, and that's part of the reason why you have more Indians going abroad, because we approach the world today as a global workplace. That for us, facilitating people studying, people working, people serving, and looking after them at times of trouble, this is something which is very, very central to our foreign policy outlook. Then I would, of course, like to mention the cultural aspects of what we have done, the narrative building which we have done. I think the International Day of Yoga and the propagation of Ayurveda would be two examples. But I think there's a larger narrative also which we are trying to shape, really a narrative of a civilization, of our history, of our traditions, of making the world understand that, cultural rebalancing is as important as economic and political rebalancing. That, somewhere we should not be conducting world affairs on the terms of other people. That how do we gain respect and be treated in that sense as an equal stakeholder? That is the eighth achievement. And finally, I would say, with all due humility, that there is something today like an Indian model or an Indian experience, which today we are trying to share with the world. And a lot of our projects, we have today roughly done projects in 78 countries in the world. So there are less than 200 countries in the world, 195, 96, depending on how you count them. So 1/3 of the countries of the world actually have today hosted an Indian project. And there are more than 600 projects that we've done across the world. And many of these projects are actually experience sharing. That when they see, what we have done, one of course is the project itself. The other is what, the replication or the extrapolations from that project. So these 9 achievements, to my mind, have really been the record of the last 9 years. We have tried to pull all these strands together in the manner in which we are now, I would say, celebrating the G20. So our hope, our expectation is that the G20 would be an occasion really to present India to the world, to demonstrate, what is it that we are capable of, so that the rest of the world today actually has a better understanding of the transformations. I'll just take a few minutes more and come to another point, which is I have spelled out for you what I believe are the big changes, the 9 big changes in the last 9 years. Now you could ask me, okay, so what has changed? Why is it that a lot of this has happened? Why didn't it happen at the same pace or in the same way or before? And I do think that there is actually today a change of outlook, a change of outlook in the leadership, in the government, I would say even in the country. That today there is greater strategic clarity. Today there is greater confidence. We are far more contemporary people. We look at the world and we judge what is, we are not looking at yesterday's issues alone. I mean, I think today we are increasingly, if you look at the debates in India and the focus even of government policies, I gave, the semiconductor as an example, that we are today, our agenda itself is much more updated. I also feel that we have been able to harmonize our nationalism with our internationalism very well. That there's no question that this is a much more nationalistic government, and we are proud of it. But there's no question, it's also a more internationalistic government. That if you, as I travel out in the world, for me, nothing has generated greater goodwill than what we did during COVID. The vaccine Maitri. I mean, there are people who literally, who become emotional talking about it. So the fact that we could be nationalistic and internationalist at the same time, contemporary and yet proud of our traditions and our history at the same time, that we have had strategic clarity and the confidence to act on it. I think the fact that we are today, in a sense, very, I would say, people-centric in a way, that we respond to the needs of society, the popular needs of society, I think that has helped. But most of all, I think today people do see us as a source of ideas, as a shaper of debates, and they see what I would honestly say is a more authentic India. That, when they look at somebody like Narendra Modi, to them, this man actually speaks for India. He exudes India in many ways. And I think that has had a big impact as well on the international community. So these were some of the thoughts which I thought I would share with you, and I'd be very happy to listen to any comments or respond to any questions. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Jaishankar, for a master class, I would say, as far as foreign policy is concerned. I think you have really done a kind of a magisterial survey of India's external relations brought such a great deal of clarity to why India has taken certain policy measures, what their impact has been, and how this is clearing the decks for much bigger things to come in the future. We have about half an hour for questions that may be put to the Minister. When you ask a question, please raise your hand, but please also identify yourself and if you represent any particular organization. And please make your question short. Avoid long commentaries, I would hope. But I will exercise my privilege as chairing the session to ask perhaps the first question. And the first question is that, as you have sort of sketched out, there has been a dramatic expansion in India's engagement with the world. There is no doubt about that. So you mentioned the new areas where we have perhaps increased our presence, our footprint, whether it is over the oceans or over the lands. India is literally almost everywhere. But I have a complaint, and that complaint is not a new one. How is it that we expect to support such a large expansion in India's relations with the world, which is also critical with such a small foreign service? And this is a perennial issue that I have, that here is a country which is really being recognized as a great power, and yet it has perhaps one of the smallest core of diplomats anywhere in the world. Are we doing something about it, Mr. Minister?
You mean other than being smarter and working harder?
That we have always been doing.
So, no, it is a challenge. Our numbers have grown. Numbers have not grown as much as I would like it to, because every time you add an embassy, also you get a few numbers more. To some extent, I would say use of technology has helped. To some extent, working with other parts of the government has helped. But your basic point that the Ministry of External Affairs and the Foreign Service should be larger is not one I would dispute. In fact, my endeavor is to have the government look at that. But I would though enter one caveat. When I look at the way by which people count their foreign service, I think it's also important to understand different people count it very differently. We count it most narrowly and therefore end up with the smallest number. Often there are other countries who have a more liberal classification of their employees. To some extent, we also have relied much more in the foreign, in the manner in which our embassies have evolved on local staff. So I agree with you that it is not something which is satisfactory. I would dearly love to get more people. I'm negotiating some of that as I speak. But it is but let me put it to you this way. For all the constraints, I would say then maybe the 9 years should look even better.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm somewhat reassured that you will bring your exceptional negotiating skills to also get the government to sanction a much larger core of diplomats than we have today. Yes, sir, you had raised your hand. Please identify yourself and organization, and please make your question short. Thank
Sir,
you.
Alok Bansal, India Foundation. Thanks for the lovely exposition, and I think there is no doubt, even your critics would agree that foreign policy has been an unqualified success during the last 9 years. I have two small questions regarding the areas that you didn't cover. How do you look at Afghanistan? Because recent Indian actions seem to be indicating that we are trying to legitimize Taliban while leaving our traditional allies high and dry. And the second is, you talked about India-European Union free trade area. Now, does that mean that regional comprehensive economic partnership is a closed chapter? And in which way is a free trade area with EU better than RCEP?
On Afghanistan, we all have preferences. God gives us a lot of realities. So I think somewhere one has to find some kind of common ground. At this time in Afghanistan, we have what we have. So here are our choices. Do we walk away from Afghanistan entirely and say, we have discomfort with the regime and therefore we should have no dealings with that country? I think our own sense in the government is that that's perhaps not the right way to handle it. So we have decided that we would maintain an embassy, not at an ambassadorial level. A lot of other countries have done it. By the way, I should tell you, a lot of countries have sent back ambassadors. We have not done so. And we have focused on areas which we believe will impact the Afghan people and which will be recognized by the Afghan people. It was food support initially. It was providing vaccines. It is providing medicines to a hospital which we built many years ago out there. That's broadly where we are at this stage. How do we go further? I think we'll have to wait and see. The fact is, at the end of the day, we are not in a position to in Afghanistan or in many other places to necessarily say, I will only work with the regime I like. I cannot be utterly unrealistic about what has happened in Afghanistan. On your question about EFTA, look, I think the European economies are, in many ways, significantly different from the RCEP economies. It would really be comparing apples and oranges here. I don't think I could give you a realistic view of what is better about them and not about these guys. The only thing I would say is the European Union are all market economies. Secondly, we do not have many of our concerns with respect to RCEP, which were not addressed, pertain to the nature of the RCEP economies. We were worried what happens if there's a surge of imports. We were worried about the supply chain, the rules of origin. Now, these were some concerns which were very specific to RCEP, because if you look at the composition of RCEP, there is very good reason to be concerned. We don't have that concern, obviously, where European Union is, if you look at the composition of the European Union.
Okay. There were two hands there. First, you, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Pradeep Gupta, sir. I go back to 2015 when you had just taken over as Foreign Secretary. I met you and suggested about the joint research with the US entities in the present visit, the last visit of the PM to US. There has been some small beginning in this direction, that is Indus initiative is there for the startups of the both sides. But for the research and development, because that is very essential for our getting deepening of the technology from the US to Indian entities. This G414 transfer will certainly add, but it will not be in that manner. But if we get exposure to the research and development, I'm also founder of a think tank which is working in defense TOTs. Okay. So that's why this particular question. And second small question, that the new framework resulted in nuclear deal. This particular visit will also result in something big in few years down the line.
Okay. Yes, please. I'll take 2-3 questions together.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my name is Anurag Bisain. I am from MPIDSA, sir. At the outset, kindly accept my compliments as an ordinary citizen for raising the morale of an average Indian, sir. And I am an unabashed admirer, sir. So you spoke about India's neighborhood first policy and the non-reciprocal approach of the government, sir. There are continuing attempts, well-known attempts by China to ring-fence India, sir, starting from Pekwa in Bangladesh to Kokos and Chokyu in Myanmar to Hambantota in Sri Lanka and observation posts in Maldives, sir. So should India not have its own, apart from the benign approach, own Monroe Doctrine in Indian Ocean, sir, to articulate its national security interests, just as China has done in the South China Sea, where it has ousted its own inimical interests. And in turn, we could actually give security guarantees to the smaller island neighbors. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Suhas, I'll come to you.
That's Suhas Borkar. I'll take you to your second circle and then to Southeast Asia. You see, in 2002, when we had the first ASEAN-India summit in Phnom Penh, Prime Minister Vajpayee spoke of the rail and the road connect from New Delhi to Hanoi. And then the very next year, I made that trip of 7,600 kilometers. And, there's nothing on that all these years. I mean, we are 21 years after that. And then, you see, it affects our credibility.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Vichitra.
I have to, this is Vichitra Sharma, I'm a journalist. I have two questions on security issues. One is the rogue elements in Canada who are in collusion with the head of state. Do we have a policy for this kind of things that are going on in so many countries? Embassies being attacked, civilians being attacked, and they're constantly haranguing Indian policies. Secondly, what really impacts our Himalayas, the water issue, the climate issue. We've just forgotten the Tibet policy. Do we have a policy towards Tibet and that entire range?
Yeah. Okay. I think if you can.
Okay.
I'll come to the next round.
Let me start with the joint research question. In fact, on this visit to Washington, there was on the defense side this Indus X platform for defense innovation. There were 35 projects, if my memory serves me right, which new projects between the National Science Foundation and the Department of, our scientific lot. There were a number of space, there were space agreements. We've joined the Artemis Accords. And there was, in fact, agreement to collaborate in terms of space activities. By the way, I should tell you today the cabinet passed the proposal to bring a legislation on a national research foundation in India, which would actually support research. I would, agree with you that research and collaboration is very much area of interest, mutual interest for India and the United States. But I would also perhaps suggest for your consideration that we should not envisage this in a kind of narrow lab-to-lab or government-to-government terms. If you look at the American research and innovation tradition, it has a very short journey before it becomes kind of commercial and deployable. So there is a lot of best practices, not just from the US, I think from a whole lot of other countries which we could imbibe. My sense is today we are coming to the crossroads on many of these issues, because often you'd be surprised today how many Indians are being employed by international companies in areas like R&D and design and engineering of various kinds. So this is something which is going to happen. I think our effort is to shape it through institutions which are more contemporary than the earlier ones. Your comparison with the nuclear, no, look, 2005 was a one-off. It was a one-off because there was a particular problem which was an obstacle for the development of cooperation, which was the nuclear problem. Because the nuclear problem also spilled over to space, it also spilled over to defense. So until we found a resolution to the nuclear problem, we could not proceed in other areas. But so the idea that, every visit must have, or a big visit must have another nuclear framework, I think, I will have to invent a problem to solve it. Because right now, I don't have any big obstacles today. The only, it's only our willingness, our boldness, our abilities, which is a constraint. There are very few legislative, because remember, nuclear was a legislative, it was not even an administrative issue. There was a law which prevented India and US working together in a whole range of areas. So I would say today that there are many more possibilities. In fact, I didn't get to that part of it, but there is a phrase which you will hear more and more. It's a phrase called trusted collaboration. Trusted collaboration means countries who have similar political, social, cultural, market values, their ability to work together. It is particularly strong in digital, but in high tech of various kinds. And in a way, I think it goes back to the European Union question which was asked, which is really, which are the countries with whom you have a trusted sense about working on sensitive technology. On the question of, can we have a Monroe Doctrine and, we are being ring-fenced. Look, I'll make 2 points. Monroe Doctrine was of a certain era. There were 2 things which you needed for a Monroe Doctrine. Number 1, you needed one dominant power. And 2, you needed no other proximate competition. There was no other United States next to the United States which said, I will challenge your Monroe Doctrine. And Monroe Doctrine was meant to keep the Europeans away. And the Europeans were one hemisphere away. So I think the Monroe Doctrine would not be the right analogy to really describe our challenges. The reality is in the Indo-Pacific, we are going to see competition. We need to, we need to compete. Now, if you excel in competition and get to be in a pole position, that would be great. But I have to be realistic. If I am competing, I will look for partners with whom, I can work with so that, my ability to protect and advance my interests are stronger. And in many ways, that's really what we are trying to do in the Indian Ocean and in the Indo-Pacific. In terms of, what you call ring fencing in our own region, look, this has been going on for many, many years. But again, I put it to you this way. China is not going to let up on our neighbors because you are unhappy. I mean, if you are unhappy with it, we should do something, and we are doing something about it. I mean, part of the reason we need a neighborhood first policy. If we are not first in our neighborhood, there are consequences for us. So we need to put money out there. We need to put technology out there. We need to, give them relationships and options which they will exercise. Our neighborhood is the focal area for where we must compete the strongest. The road to Southeast Asia. Well, I suspect you haven't been to Myanmar recently. I don't blame you. But if you do, you will discover actually that because the problem is the Myanmar section. There is actually an entire road network which comes all the way from Vietnam up to Thailand. There are parts which are not as good as they should be. The real problem is to build a high quality road through Myanmar which would connect Northeast India to Southeast Asia. What has happened in these years is the connectivity within Northeast has grown enormously. Today you really have high quality connectivity out there. But Myanmar has proved to be a problem, and a lot of it is a function of the turbulence in Myanmar. So there are projects, there are bridging projects, there are road building projects. Many of them are semi-completed. In fact, we still have work crews there. These are live projects for us. But we are not able to proceed because the law and order situation there does not allow that rapid progress. But our intention is to actually do an India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral. And we are coming one way, the Thais are coming the other way, but it's really that gap in between which is proving to be a challenge. The two questions, one about Canada. You know, for us, how Canada has dealt with the Khalistani issue has been a long-standing concern, because very frankly, they seem to be driven by vote bank politics, and their responses have all been, to the best of my understanding, actually constrained by what they regard as vote bank compulsions on them. We made it very clear, and I've done so sometimes even in public, which is that if there are activities which are permitted from Canada, which impinge on our sovereignty, territorial integrity, on our security, then we will have to respond. So it is something which is I would say, a continuing conversation with Canada, not always a satisfactory conversation, but it is something on which we have been very, very clear. And you can see that in many ways over the last few years it has impacted our ties. You spoke about the glaciers and the Himalayan areas. Look, we have some limited engagement with China, mostly on river water flows. We have not been able to build over previous years, build a larger conversation about what happens there. And the fact, because there is a boundary dispute, it is clearly an obstacle to such a conversation. So at this moment, I'm afraid, there is really very little positive that I can say to address your concern.
Okay. So this will have to be the last round. I'm sorry, I will have to leave out a few people. Yes.
My question is, thank you, Dr. Jaishankar, for enumerating the 9 key highlights. My question is, we still have 1 more year to go for the elections. So what would be your thrust area in the 10th year? Or do I understand this is a wrapping up of the key highlights, and we can see elections being preponed? My second question, and a very small question, is, you said your focus is on the neighborhood. So if we look at our neighborhood, who are our friends, whom we can count on?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Alok Mehta. I'm also a journalist. Because in this visit, US visit, cross-border terrorism working together, what I understood, you are the best person because you have vast experience. I feel that this is the first time American agreed to cooperate on this issue. How serious they are, and especially because our experience in the last 50 years, sometimes they come here and then say, okay, Pakistan also we want something. It's a major issue. And even for China also are very, very serious, because at the same time to just balance, they send their foreign minister to China before visit of our prime minister. And I know you and Prime Minister Modi had a very long discussions and long experience also. So what you feel on these 2 issues?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
I am Sanjeev Tripathi. I am a retired civil servant with the intelligence background. I will be seeking your views on 2 issues which have remained pending for some time and which are very important in the national interest. First relates to the illegal immigration from Bangladesh and from China. This problem has been there for some time, and so far it has been dealt in a, one can say, ad hoc manner. So my question is that don't you think that to deal with this problem effectively, legally, and in an internationally acceptable manner, we need to develop our own refugee law, and clearly making legal distinction between an illegal immigrant and refugee, in which we must have a provision that the person who is otherwise qualified to get the refugee status will not get so if India is not the first country of refuge. So that is one thing. And in this context, I will say that all our neighbors have given biometric national identity cards to their nationals, except maybe Nepal, where the process is on. We had passed a law in 2005 about it, but our focus has been on NRC rather than giving national identity card to our nationals. Don't you think that process must start immediately, and we should give the card and change the narrative?
Okay. Joshi sir.
I'm Lalit Joshi. I have a small question that is about, you have spoken a lot about the neighborhood policy and so on. What happened to the SAARC? Is it a different organization or something is happening? Over the years, we have not heard anything about the SAARC countries.
I'll take one more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Apat.
Sir, I have. I am Professor Sudhir K. Jain, IIT Delhi. I have few inputs for your consideration. One is that, like in US, we get 10-year visa. Can it be possible that all countries give 1-year visa? Because in the globalization, the frequency of travel abroad has been very high. So again, every some months we have to apply for visa and all that. That is a very serious problem. So you can take it at appropriate level.
So
second thing is that, like the UID we started in India, if a similar kind of a thing through some diplomatic international initiative can be taken up, and other countries also take it up, like Pakistan. So all this, anybody who is found with the fingerprint and all that, it can be found out that whether a person terrorists belong to who and which country and all that. So this would be a good initiative if it is possible at international level if you can take it up. This I spoke to Mr. Nandan Nelekani when he, about 10 years back, when we were starting it, he said that is not my, role. So I think it can be taken up by you. And third is,
short question,
Myanmar,
please.
very short. Myanmar, I have been meeting so many people from Myanmar internationally for past 20 years, 30 years. All of them are not too happy with the internal situation. And I think everybody knows it. And there is some kind of a thing that Myanmar and Sri Lanka people say that it will be good if we merge with India.
May I?
Please.
Okay. The first observation, you asked saying, am I giving a 9-year highlight? And no, it's 9 years is 9 years. And election term is 9 years is 5 years plus 4 years. The election comes at the end of 5 years. So I would not like you to read anything which is completely unwarranted, and I assure you certainly unintended. So please do not think that this is anything other than my coming here and sharing what I feel are the achievements of 9 years. Who are our friends in the neighborhood? I would say today pretty much Pakistan clearly is a case in itself. And our relationship with China is right now going through a very difficult phase. But if you look at the rest of our neighbors, I think today our relationship with them is very good. My own experience is that they are generally benevolent and helpful towards India. We work with them in many, many different ways. If you use friendship is a very hard thing to quantify. Who's your friend? But I would say a country with whom there's more business, there's more travel, you have less political problems, less arguments, I would count them among friends, and I think certainly that would be the case pretty much with our entire neighborhood, barring the exceptions that I mentioned. On the question about counter-terrorism, bottom line was you were asking how serious is the United States. I think people should understand the United States is very serious. The United States has been enormously helpful to us. Certainly, I can testify hands-on for the last decade that on a whole lot of counter-terrorism issues, whether it is in terms of operational cooperation or whether it is in terms of things like UN listing or even in bodies which deal with counter-terror. The US is one country which actually has been very, very cooperative and constructive where we are concerned. So I would say in all fairness, it's something that we should recognize and we should appreciate. On the Mr. Tripathi's question, look, I'm the foreign minister, I'm not the home minister. So I recognize as a foreign minister that I have neighbors and the neighbors have a bearing on the issue that you mentioned. And certainly in some cases, issues like fencing have been part of our conversation out there. But how do we handle it within the country? That is something, it's not something honestly I would pronounce on, not only because it's not my area, but also I think it is a complicated issue on which there is actually a big body of opinion, and it's not something which is which has emerged today. It is something which has really been debated today for over a decade. On the actually the biometric issue came up there. Look, we are today using biometrics for Aadhaar. I would hope by the end, sometime this year, we will be able to use it for passports. But it's not something that is easy to take to other jurisdictions. So, I mean, because a lot of countries do biometrics. Very few countries share biometrics. So there isn't an overwhelming desire in the world to have a common biometric pool. In fact, there are a whole lot of concerns about people's personal data there. So I think there are challenges. If I can go to the SARC question there. SARC you have not heard very much about SARC because frankly in the last few years there isn't very much to hear about. We have not had meetings because you have a member of SARC who doesn't conform to all the basic requirements of what a good member should be. And that is today an obstacle really for SARC to meet. As I said, we cannot continue with acts of terrorism and say the cooperation will happen nevertheless. So I think there are issues there, and it's time that we recognized the seriousness of those issues and not allow terrorism to happen by night and trade by day. I don't think the country is well served by that. On the US practice, look, the US is actually a very unusual country because I really cannot think of any other country which gives a 10-year visa. Canada, yes. So, but it's very unusual. So in fact, we are struggling with some of the European countries to even bring them onto years, leave alone multiple years. So there are challenges out there. Not every country, the US is in some ways unique because it's really an immigrant-friendly society in a way in which large parts of the world are not. So I don't, I'd be very happy if that kind of expectation comes true. But I think realistically you cannot use US as a benchmark in this matter to approach the rest of the world.
So the minister has been very generous to allow one extra round. So I can't take all the numbers, but I will take a few questions. Please do sit down. Meenakshi, you wanted to raise a question.
Just in the interest of time, but if I may, just two quick. Thank you for that very panoramic exposition, Dr. Jaishankar. Two quick questions. Do you think that in the last 9 years, we have leveraged education enough as a soft power, especially in the context of our neighborhood first policy? And second, what are your views on what is now termed as gender-sensitive foreign policy? Thank you.
Yes, please. Right at the end, please. Right at the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sir, an unabashed admirer of you. I'm an American citizen of Indian origin. I used to be with the International Finance Corporation. I've returned back to India, all said and done, fir bhi dil hai Hindustani. I work with an electrical vehicles company in Bangalore, just here for a conference. Just a very simple question. You mentioned the diaspora and the importance that you pay to the diaspora. Really interested to know, very candidly, coming back to India has its own share of challenges after living and working in the US. There's a lot of us in the US and other places who want to come back and do good things for India. There are various constraints. I'd like to know maybe one or two concrete steps at your level that you think could be encouraging of various folks in the diaspora to come back and work in India. Thank you.
So in order to be gender sensitive, I will take two questions from our lady. Yes, please. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Sheetal Sharma from JNU, Center for European Studies. With a growing size on the global platform, is there any possibility for us to become a norm setter in future? Say, for instance, EU claims itself to be a norm setter in the climate change and energy and environment. Don't you think that we reverberate more with Global South if we are having greater solutions for these changes, which are real challenges in 25 years from now? Thank you so much.
Yes, the last one. Yes, please.
I think there's one very agitated lady at the back. You can include her.
All ladies are very agitated.
Good evening, sir. My name is Vanshika Kant. I'm an international development professional. I have two questions. I'd like to know your views on how India can leverage the growing creator economy that we see domestically. And when I talk about the creator economy, if you want me to elaborate further, I could. But as we see some countries like Spain, which are also providing better visa facilities for global creators to come create content, cover the culture of that region vis-a-vis their own region. And I say that because it's a huge market, and in the next 10 to 20 years, it's just going to grow even bigger. The second question that I have is based on China. I'm a Schwarzman scholar on leadership and global affairs, so this is something I'd like to hear your views on. We know the situation between India and China right now. Despite that, at one point there was huge funding coming from China for Indian startups. That has also evolved a bit, but I would like to know your thoughts on that. And secondly, an institution like AIIB, your views on it, and India's presence there, because India is actually one of the largest countries in terms of its projects.
Okay, now, our veteran member. Yes, please.
I've noticed one very positive change in the audience that greets our political leaders. There's a generation change, there's a youthful people. As you said, we are very popular in the Middle East, and I think the old fogies have all gone, and the new ones are facing with a lot of positive energy and enthusiasm. Do you think, would you like to give some kudos to those young people who are now enthusiastic to do something with India and America and the Middle East?
Okay.
And
Okay.
Africa?
Okay. Thank you very much. That's the end of the question session. Now the last answer session.
Okay. I think there's a certain amount of overlap between some of the questions. But starting with, can we leverage education? Yes, I think we can. We can leverage education in multiple ways by encouraging more foreign students in India, by facilitating foreign institutions to go out of India, and by encouraging more collaborations, maybe research in different domains. Now, this sounds easy to say, but I assure you that is certainly the policy direction. And in fact, again, we have just cleared IITs to the first lot of IITs to go out of India and set up campuses. You know, it's something, again, I think most of us would say it should have happened a long time ago, but it's happening now. And we've also had, so in fact you're going to have an IIT in Africa, you're going to have an IIT in the Gulf, and I suspect you're going to have a few more in other locations. At the same time, we're trying to get, you know, to encourage foreign universities to come in, because there are, as I said, about 1 million Indian students at any given time who are studying abroad. And not all of that million would have gone abroad had they found an appropriate option in India. So I think my sense is people are working through that process. You've had a bunch of Australian universities who are the pilot projects in this. They're coming in through Gift City in Gujarat, which provides a different dispensation. But overall, my experience has been, particularly when I travel, you know, abroad, when I meet people who've studied, you know, I was in Mozambique. The president of Mozambique had studied in India. And he embarrassed me because he knew Ahmedabad better than I did, though I was an MP from Gujarat. So, and you know, he had very visible nostalgia for Gujarat. So, I think there's huge, you know, there's a cachet there. There was a time when in smaller numbers this used to happen, and somewhere we didn't scale it up as we grew. And it is something which we are now trying to remedy. On the gender sensitive issues, yes, you know, there are many ways by which you can look at gender sensitive foreign policy. And you know, a lot of it is in the conduct of foreign policy, but a lot of it is also in the agenda of foreign policy. And I would say again, perhaps we need to broadcast this more. A lot of our own development projects are actually aimed at strengthening, you know, gender balances and gender focused activities. So, much, you know, when I said at the end of my 9 points that India as a model or India as an experience, there are countries where if we go and talk to them about what is happening in India on the gender issue, I think it's something which really impresses them. My own experience, again, in the last few years is we often, you know, when you talk to other politicians, you get through the foreign policy stuff fairly fast, you know. Then the real conversation starts about how, you know, what the changes in India, the digital changes, the health changes, the gender changes, the education changes, the infrastructure changes, the solar energy changes. So today the world is actually very fascinated by what India is undergoing, you know, the transformation of India. And that, I think, itself is an enormous soft power. So when at the beginning of our G20 exercise, we decided, Prime Minister felt that we should not just articulate the concerns of the global south, we should do it after consulting them. You know, we should not appropriate that voice for ourselves. So we sat down and actually interacted with 125 countries. And when you looked at the sum and substance of what they wanted us to put forward, a lot of it was sustainable development goal centric, and much of it was gender focused. So today, in fact, our biggest worry is between the COVID, the Ukraine conflict, the economic downturn, the disruptions. The resources today for any kind of social activity, any kind of economic activity is getting constricted, and the first pinch is felt by the girl. That if there is less education, the girl takes a hit. If there's less employment, the girl takes a hit. If there's less health, the girl takes a hit. So we are actually seeing today, when we say SDGs are in danger, and there's a UN Secretary General's report about this. Do look, if you see the report, a lot of it is really focused on, you know, the vulnerability, all the progress we have made in terms of gender advancement. Today there is, you know, stand threatened by what is happening. On the issue of diaspora, look, I would say that the more the kind of growth, opportunity, innovation, energy that we can have in our society, and that's why we come to the youth issue which popped up. It's not, you know, it's not just what we are doing abroad. I can actually, you know, I see the change even in India. I go a fair amount to universities and colleges. Today when I visit a college, it is very different from what it would have been 10 years ago. That there are, you know, almost any institution would actually put forward to you saying, I have a few students who are patent holders, I have a few people who have got some recognition in some innovation. So the idea even of what is successful is changing in this country. And I think there is this enormous energy in our youth. The challenge for the government, not the responsibility for the government, is to give them that enabling environment. And that enabling environment, you know, if you make it easier to do business, if you make it easier for living, if you through Gati Shakti improve infrastructure, if you do smart cities, if you take care of basics like water and housing and health, that is then the environment in which actually those energies would really start to come. And the moment diaspora feels that there is action in India, believe me, that is the biggest magnet. I mean, they're not going to come, I mean, yes, individual cases may come, but if there is to be a larger pull of the diaspora, and everybody doesn't need to live here, I mean, people can go up and down, it would happen if that sense of energy is very much stronger in India, and I think we are heading in that direction. I could have given a new lecture on 9 achievements on the domestic side, but you'll have to spend a whole hour with me on that. On the norm setter issue, you know, it's best today to actually wade into the emerging debates early, because historically we've tended to join conservatively, you know. So when we look at today the AI debate, I use that as an example, you know, we can't stay away from the AI debate because it's too complicated and people will get upset with us. We can't stay away from the digital debate either. So wherever today the rules, there are a whole set of domains, emerging domains where there are no rules or the rules will undergo fundamental transformation. I think those are probably the areas where we should come in very strongly. On the you know, this set of questions, AIIB, we are a member of AIIB. We have a presence there. So there's really nothing that I can say which would enlighten you anymore.
We are the largest recipient of loans from AIIB.
Yeah. But the issue of you know, is there funding? You know, what is the funding and what is not the funding? You have ups and downs, and the ups and downs reflect, you know, what is the larger environment. So if there are environmental challenges, there will be flow challenges. So that's something which I think anybody in the business world needs to take as a given. Can we become a greater platform or location, you know, for more innovative, creative activities? Yes, I think that is really the direction in which we would like to go. So the whole idea of, you know, digitizing, innovating, skilling, even encouraging people to sort of join, you know, even at a school, a tinkering lab, for example. The idea is to get the coming generations of rote learning and fixed job kind of mentality, which was my generation's sort of experience. And how do you really prepare the younger generation for something which would be, by standards of people like us, would be very, very unorthodox? And I think that's the kind of thinking which certainly the Prime Minister, I can tell you, has.
Thank you very much. You have been extremely generous with your time, and you have answered all the questions that have been raised most patiently. I think the great takeaway from this that I have is that, ultimately the most important objective of foreign policy is the transformation of India. And I think what we have heard today is really a recipe that has been presented for the transformation of India in a very, very rapidly changing international environment. I'm sure that as we go forward, there will be other occasions for us to perhaps welcome you again as a member to the IIC and have more stimulating, exchanges like we have had this evening. Thank you very much, and I will now request our director to deliver a word of thanks. Sorry, we kept you much longer, is it?
No problem. Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, President of India International Center, Ambassador Shyam Saran, ladies and gentlemen. In the recent months and years, several important developments have taken place in the international arena. Our international relationship has also got, definitely influenced, affected, with those developments. So we thought to discuss these issues, and the best way would be to, have our External Affairs Minister, in this kind of discussion. When we approached him, he very kindly agreed to have a town hall kind of discussion on all these issues which he had today. I'm extremely grateful to him for sparing his time for us. Friends, he really spoke from his heart. He gave us a 360-degree view of our foreign policy, how our interests are being secured. He emphasized that security does not remain confined to just military security. There are several areas, where the nation has to be secured. He particularly highlighted the economic security, the technological security, etc. In this respect, I would like to just mention two things. That he said that semiconductor, how they are so very important, industry is so very important for us, and it is because of his personal interest that we are seeing the inflow of technology and the semiconductor industry getting its roots, and in due course of time, very shortly rather, it will become very, very vital kind of industry in our country. On the economic side, I would like to just give one example. In the wake of Ukraine war, when country was under tremendous pressure from US and Europe with regards to our relationship with Russia, our foreign minister, he played a very crucial part. He saw to it that our relationship with the West, US is also at a high pedestal. At the same time, our relationship with Russia is not tinkered with. And the benefit of that is that we were able to import oil at a time when our economy was struggling with several kind of challenges, and we were able to get so much of oil from Russia. If I'm not wrong, the total value of the oil that we have, I'm talking of the concessional aspect, that we have received from Russia would be somewhere around 1 lakh crore rupees. And today, our economy has been stabilized, the inflation has come under check, the role played by Dr. Jaishankar in getting the Russian oil is very, very significant. Sir, we are indeed very grateful to you for sparing your time, and we are looking forward to your more and more visit and such interaction with our honorable members. Friends, I'm also very thankful to our President, Ambassador Shyam Saran. Most of you may not be knowing, he just returned yesterday after a hectic trekking. He goes every year for trekking in Himalayas. So for hectic trekking he returned. One was expecting that he will take rest, but he has not taken rest. He spent his time here. I'm really grateful to you, sir. I am also grateful to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for your gracious presence and this fantastic interaction that took place between you and the Honorable Minister. Before I end, I would like to invite to all of you for a tea which we have arranged in our veranda near the main dining hall. Thank you very much once again to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.